We got Dirk Brandon striking again. Um, Now, the Republicans have been drilling openly for weeks now over the small House majority that they have now in the new year, and not because they have any plans for legislation that will improve any of the lives of Americans. Now, their blueprint for 2023 is all revenge on Democrats all the time. That's because the Democrats had impeached Trump twice for committing crimes, even though the GOP didn't have a fucking spine to convict them. Now the GOP is about to go wild with phony Biden investigations, but the media cannot take the bait on this. Republicans know how to manipulate the both sides impulse of the press, and Hunter Biden's laptop is not just a story on this. The Republicans are still salty over House Democrats investigating Trump for transgressions like attempting to overthrow democracy and sending a murderous mob after Congress and his own vice squatter. The main forum that this revenge will take will be endless, stupid investigations into the various conspiracy theories about President Joe Biden that have been dredged up from the bowels of right-wing media. Now, now Biden is not interested in making it any easy for them. Now on Thursday, the White House lawyer Richard Salber metaphorically crumpled up the Republican requests for materials on various fake scandals, telling them that they don't have the authority yet and will have to redo all the paperwork in the new year should they try to investigate and continue. Um, Now, should the committee issue similar or other requests in the 118th Congress, we will review and respond to them in good faith, consistent with the needs and obligations of both branches, and we expect the new Congress will undertake its oversight responsibilities in the same spirit of good faith. Now, now one can smell the sarcasm dripping off the letter, of course, if you can tell sarcasm from reality, basically. Even a cursory review of the request shows that good faith is not a concept that holds much meaning for the House Republicans. As Reuters had reported, lawmakers requested documents related to probes into the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, which started during the previous administration, and the federal government's response to threats against members of local school boards over pandemic-era restrictions and the curriculum disputes. They didn't ask for Hunter Biden's laptop, but then again, they didn't need to. That's already been stolen from them, supposedly under shady circumstances involving Rudy Kaludi. Now, this list gives us general idea of the bullshit that will be pouring out of the House Oversight Committee for the next 2 years. Conspiracy theories smearing White House Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci, who will likely be pulled out of retirement to testify, while Representative Jim Jordan screams false accusations at him. Now, the faux outrage over Biden ending the expensive go-nowhere war in Afghanistan, coupled with hypocritical whining over military aid to Ukraine, and perhaps most troubling, winking encouragement of domestic terrorism by betraying those who were investigated for for seditious scheming as victims. Now, the Republicans have no limits to their pettiness. We can expect 2 years of taxpayer money being used to show off pictures of Hunter Biden's cock, excused with the vague pretext that it's necessary to investigate his business dealings. Now, the Republicans no doubt are aware that they look like a bunch of clowns when they do shit like this, but they don't care for one reason. And traditionally, these antics work to bait the mainstream media into giving creditless coverage to fake scandals about Democrats. The gold standard, of course, is how the phony Whitewater investigation into the 1990s took a winding road to the discovery that President Bill Clinton had an affair with a young White House employee named Monica Lewinsky, and it led to months of lavish, embarrassing coverage of Clinton's sex life. Now, even more preposterous and pumped-up scandals have followed, from President Barack Obama's birth certificate to Benghazi, which became a national catchword, even though no one can really explain what was supposed to be so scandalous about Benghazi. Now, Republicans understood all too well the Achilles heel of the mainstream media, the cavernous longing for balance. The journalists want desperately to be seen as objective, and the cheapest way to achieve that is to present both sides as equally corrupt. The problem, of course, is that simply isn't fucking true. Democrats, like all political parties, have their fucking problems, and when they mess up or engage in corruption, they should be held accountable. But their issues at the moment are a pittance compared to the endemic lying and corruption that came out of the party of Donald Trump. Now, one way for the press to achieve balance is to make mountains out of Democratic molehills or worse, to cover flat-out fake or unimportant stories as if they were real scandals. Now, for instance, Republicans are undertaking a truly despicable defamation campaign against Fauci because they believe the mainstream media will give airtime to false accusations that the doctor somehow caused COVID-19, which in reality he did not. Now, sadly, they have good reason to believe this because in 2021, outlets that really should know better, including the New York Times and the Washington Post, gave lavish coverage to conspiracy theory claiming that the COVID-19 was invented in a Chinese lab, which it was not. Most scientists believe it mutated in an animal to human transmission, and they were bullied into it by internet trolls who basically insinuated that the press was covering for the Chinese government out of some anti-Trump bias. Now, for reasons that take too long to recount here, there was a perception that it was somehow better for Trump politically if the disease was manufactured instead of evolved. Now, sure enough, even though the press largely covered the conspiracy theory as questions are being asked, the idea that the pandemic was man-made took off in the public imagination. Despite that particular debacle, there are some hints that some in the mainstream press are finally starting to prioritize truth and relevance over balance. We see this most with the bogus Hunter Biden story. Initially, Trump and Giuliani and Rudy Giuliani did have some success getting the New York Times to run a story misleading readers into thinking that Joe Biden had used his time as vice president to assist his son's money-making schemes, and those accusations are flat out fucking false. Now, the conspiracy theory was simply eclipsed by a very real conspiracy between Giuliani and Trump to leverage military aid and a plot to force Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky into announcing an investigation into Hunter and Joe Biden's dealings with the Ukrainian gas company. And Trump was impeached for that, though the New York Times still has not apologized for its role in amplifying Trump's smears. But since then, there have been many efforts by right-wing media to turn Hunter Biden's problems into a mainstream news story. So far, it's largely failed on that part, as the press has correctly assessed that the president's son has a substance abuse problem, which we already knew, and his father has tried to support his recovery, is not a scandal in any sense. Now, still the Republicans are betting that the imprimatur of congressional hearings will convert this non-story into the media maelstrom. Now, the good news is that, generally speaking, the Biden stories have a harder time getting traction in the mainstream news marketplace than Trump stories did and still do. As many readers apparently assume anything the president does is hella fucking boring, but capitalism may save us from this particular faux scandal, even if the urge to balance the endless but real Trump controversies with the spurious Biden one is still kicking. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said of Fauci or the various colorful characters who threaten school board officials and get a call from law enforcement as a response. Those folks are reliable attention magnets. Now, there's not a small chance that the media will take the bait and let the Republican lies convert the former into a villain and the latter into victims. It's probably pissing in the wind to write this, but I would implore the editors at the New York Times, the CNN, and other such media outlets to resist this bait. Just because Republicans cast aspersions doesn't mean that they need leverage coverage for doing so. Now, the role of the press is not to balance very real bad stories about Trump and the other Republicans with fictitious nonsense about Democrats. The first duty should be the truth, and the truth is there's no equivalence between Biden and Trump, or at this point Republicans and Democrats, broadly speaking. Now, plus Trump is probably going to keep committing crimes. Now, we already know Trump is going to keep committing crimes. He's going to keep lying. He's going to keep plotting another coup, and he's going to keep being extremely and loudly racist. Now, cover that shit instead. It's way more relevant and entertaining than trying to manipulate the right-wing conspiracy theories into something that looks like news. Now, if you liked the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube, and for just as little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.